Our next speaker is joining us online, Julia Sausmikat. She works at the Consumer Advice Center in North Rhine-Westphalia, that is in the west of Germany. And she is an expert in the field of food in the health market. And I'm very glad that we're having her. In her presentation, she will show you how almost any food can become a superfood, which raises the question, what can be done to inform the customers properly? Good that we are having you, and a warm welcome to Berlin.
Yeah, can you see me and hear me?
We can hear you and see you, yes.
Great. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. First of all, I want to thank the BFR and BVL for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And to all listeners, welcome to my presentation, in which I will give an insight into how food is transformed into superfood. And as we already heard a lot about legislation, the consumer perspective, and their risk perception, I would like to spot on what is actually happening in the market and what consumers are exposed to from a frontline perspective. And yes, as we don't have any legal definition of superfoods, here's one which is slightly different from the definition we find in Oxford Dictionary. It said plant-based foods that inherently contain high levels of individual micronutrients, enzymes, and phytochemicals. And inherently, so to speak, by nature, which of course is often pure suggestion and does not stand up for critical scrutiny, is marked here because, according to our observation, this aspect plays a major role in marketing and for consumers. And I put plant-based here in brackets because you will see there are some exceptions. And on the right, you can see some typical superfoods which have been clustered here according to their botanical origin or visual criteria. And these neologisms are also common terms when it comes to superfoods. So like superfruits, super greens, super seeds, and super grains. And since there is no clear legal definition of the term superfood, a transformation in a legal sense is not necessary. And exactly the question arises, can every food be a superfood? Maybe we'll find an answer. So there are certain dimensions of transformation because transformation takes place at different levels. And this is not a scientific approach, but based on what we see in our everyday work. And so we have advances in food technology, first of all, that have made it possible to create superfoods on a large scale in the first place. And this goes hand in hand with certain societal developments, you see on the right side, that cause an interest in food that can do more than just fill you up. And of course, the real transformation takes place at the level of marketing. And in the end, we will also look at the contribution of the media and journalism, food journalism, to the transformation. And of course, all these dimensions are cross-linked with each other. And yes, this graphic also serves as an overview of my presentation, as I will go into more detail on each aspect. So let's have a look at the first area where transformation takes place, the progress in food technology. Regarding the developments in food production, just one example, if we look at spirulina, which is a blue-green microalgae, high in protein, a traditional food in Mexico, Chad, and Kenya, collected by hand from water surfaces there. It was aquaculture which enabled the mass production. So without this development, we couldn't find all the supplements on the market we have now. And also the development of new technologies in food processing are important because they made it possible to use new raw materials which gain consumers' attraction over the last years. For example, is a highly perishable fruit from South America, and there is a global commercial use only as freeze-dried powder or frozen puree. So exotic superfoods are usually not offered as original foodstuffs, but are highly processed. So as freeze-dried powder, as an extract in supplements with all the known problems, for example, the accumulation of contaminants. And fermentation is also a hot topic within the superfoods. Of course, it's not a new technique, but if you think of black garlic and kimchi, we have to face that if a food is fermented, it automatically turns into a superfood with maximum health effects on the microbiome. So at least this is what is said. And of course, superfoodization takes place by adding perceived superfoods as ingredients to processed foods, for example, in bread, cereals, or juices. As you can see on the slide, on the left, this is rather a roll, but it serves here as a super bread. And yeah, in the second example, the list of ingredients even contains the compound ingredient superfood, but this is really not a helpful information for consumers because the individual quantities are not specified. And in the example on the right, you can see the juice with an amount of 8% added aronia juice that leads to an antioxidant capacity that is highlighted in a promotionally effective way on the front. You can see this. But in fact, we have to face that half of the product consists of apple juice concentrate. So the aim then is to add value to everyday foods by providing perceived benefit to the consumers. So, and as you all know, we have a widespread popularity of supplements, pills, capsules, powders in society, and they are associated with health by consumers. And here are two more examples how just the appearance makes a superfood. Yes, we have the Inca Gold capsules on the left side with quinoa and amaranth flour without any further processing step. And they cost 160 euro per kilogram. And simple quinoa flour costs about 1/10 of the price. And it's similar with powders, of which a wide variety of preparations are currently being offered as superfoods. For example, on the right side, rosehip powder, turmeric, which is used in golden milk, and barley grass, which is made from the sprouts of germinated barley. We already had that. And yes, without advances in food processing, these products would not exist. Yeah, the next area where transformation takes place, we have to face societal developments. There's a focus on a healthy lifestyle, not in all parts of society, of course, but the awareness of health aspects of nutrition has increased. And we know from studies that perceived social norms predict habitual behavior for all food types. And also the intention to eat healthy is influenced by perceived norms of peers. So you could say healthy eating is contagious. And in response of diet-related diseases, the search for healthy diets has led to a surge in the demand for functional foods with multiple benefits and superfoods as a smart way to improve our diets. So superfoods can be seen as an answer to today's lifestyle challenges. High performance, optimizations are very common. There's a lack of time. So easy handling of superfoods like dried fruits, seeds, or beverage powders make it comfortable for consumers to adjust to a seemingly more healthy lifestyle. And superfoods are not solely consumed to adjust to consumed because of their nutritional value or their health aspects, but eating specific foods is also a way to express identity. So superfoods are not only fulfilling dietary but ethical concerns. Yeah, and as we all know, the source of and quality of information has changed dramatically over the last 30 years. The internet is used by many people as a source of information. We have a lot of influencers acting as nutrition experts, talking about topics they are more or less fit in. But nutrition is a complex issue, and what we observe is that there's very often a focus on partial aspects of superfoods, and broader information is completely faded out. For example, quinoa is talked about as the golden grain of the Andes, but the socioeconomic consequences of its export, they are often completely ignored. And there's also an interesting phenomenon called nutritional primitivism, and nutritional primitivism can be seen or can be described as the contemporary tendency to idolize primitive food cultures as nutritional utopias. And this is beginning in the 1980s. It has evolved into a complete knowledge framework for evaluating a food's healthfulness, but it challenges nutritional science. It can be seen as a response to a perceived crisis in Western health, but also as an express of social and environmental concerns about globalized and industrialized agri-food systems and their underlying social structures. But of course, the primitivist representation of superfoods obscure their complex and very often unethical reality. And moreover, the popularity of superfoods is reinforced by the fact that superfoods fit well with megatrends in nutrition, such as clean eating, plant-based, vegan, or raw food diets. And when it comes to marketing, we have to say that targeted marketing strategies are certainly the transformational level with the greatest impact on superfoodization. And the following alleged characteristics of superfoods are highlighted again and again. So superfoods are thought to have extraordinary nutritional or medical values. They are thought to be produced in a natural way with little or no technological intervention. And you know, this is just not true. And they are associated with indigenous people and traditional production practices, oftentimes in remote locations. And how marketing uses and promotes these assumptions is what we are looking next. Yes, regarding health promoting properties, practically all superfoods have in common that health promoting properties are attributed to them. And they are said to make you beautiful, to make you more efficient, and they always prevent or even cure at least one disease. And of course, this is a huge problem because there's a great risk that effective therapies will be delayed or not implemented at all. So this is the top of the pyramid, the worst case, but the base is also very interesting. Yeah, detox, health in general, and beauty is what you find. And as disease-related claims are forbidden for foods and no advertising claims have yet been approved for the most botanicals, the use of the term superfood is therefore almost a logical consequence. Because consumers are conditioned to the term already, it promises all the wonders you can imagine without leading to problems with legislation. Because here in Germany, the term superfood does not have to be used or not have to be linked with a specific health claim. And accordingly, on the internet, you can find many different random lists of superfoods that should be consumed for certain illnesses. And typically, the diet-disease relationship is completely oversimplified and written by apparently helpful people with unclear commercial interests and motives in blogs and forums. And superfoods are advertised as having a high nutritional content, you know, vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals compared to normal foods. And yes, we have there the example of the rosehip powder, which contains 117 milligram vitamin C in a daily dose. This is an amount roughly equivalent to the vitamin C content of half a bell pepper. And yes, superfoods are also often advertised with their oxygen radical absorbance capacity. And this is a lab test that attempts to quantify the total antioxidant capacity of a food. But this is a lab value without any significance for the effect in the body. And this is also considered to be a non-permissible nutritional claim. But this is very hard to explain to consumers. And in addition, the advertised significantly higher content of valuable ingredients compared to normal foods is quickly put into perspective when the actual amount consumed is taken into account. Yes, that's what you already heard. And so the relation to the RDE, and it's the question, what's about bioavailability? What is the real nutrient content after processing or importation? Yes, and you also find lots of promises like it's non-GMO, it's gluten-free and raw, which is obviously very popular. Yes. yeah, however, it's not so much the health aspects that transform a food into a superfood, it's the story around it. And this is a game with contrasts. So we have the exotic factor that plays a big role. Superfoods are new and exciting, but recently local plants such nettle, broccoli, spinach, kale, blueberry, and rosehip have also been kind of rediscovered by the media as a regional superfood. And they tell you stories of rare plants, lonely mountain regions, and people with healthy centenarians, their natural healing art. But yeah, on the other hand, you often find a reference also to traditional medicine as a counter design to non-holistic Western medicine. So as you see the example here on the right side, chia is precious seed of the Maya. And what we also see very often is also it's like it often seems that apart from exotic superfoods, there's only a completely unhealthy fast food, which is an extreme juxtaposition. So I have to say that your superfood needs a good story and things to be left out. No? The neglection of environmental or social aspects of superfood production abroad. Yes, and also the product name plays an important role. It's a fact that processed foods often contain only small amounts of the highlighted superfood ingredients. On the right side, on the left side, we have the example with superfood topping for salad, yogurt, whatever, and it contains 10% chia, 7% goji, and 6% hemp seeds. And on the right side, this superfood Riegel, cacao and cacao nibs, it contains 5% cacao nibs, which is in fact 2 grams per bar. But if you look at the nutritional values, you have to see that it contains nearly 40% sugar. And this is a lot. So this cannot be a superfood at all. Yeah, and I brought you another example for a strange superfood. This is a book, okay, but you have to see that here advertised the superfood bone broth. It's a health elixir, healing drink, and wrinkle killer out of the soup pot. And this superfood Knochenbrühe describes in detail the many beneficial effects of this miracle soup on health. And that's why I put the plants in the definition in brackets. And here also health claims used, which is okay because it's not a food sold, but a book. The minerals and trace elements contained in bone marrow support the immune system, digestion, and joints. Yeah. And it also strengthens hair and nails and fight acne-promoting inflammation. So think about bone broth. And yes, here's another interesting example. This is original superfood Celtic sea salt. And it's claimed to be rich in calcium, iron, magnesium, and who would have thought sodium and chloride, which is kind of funny because sea salt usually contains 96 to 98% sodium and chloride, and the rest must be probably calcium, iron, and magnesium. But what about microplastic? We don't know, but it's a very interesting declaration. I couldn't see the backside to verify the real content of what is claimed here, but yeah, we have to face that almost every food can be transformed into a superfood. Now we come to the last dimension, the role of media and food journalism. So what also contributes to superfoodization? We have common problems in nutrition science communication, as you can see in the headlines. They are aiming for the attention of the reader, that's clear, but it's also very damaging because administering natural substance spermidine stopped dementia, and broccoli and Brussels sprouts are cancer foes. Yeah, this is problematic because consumers, so we have to face that correlation versus causation is always mixed, or very often mixed. And there's an uncritical transfer of results from lab animals or cell culture experiments to humans. For example, we had that example with broccoli already. You have to eat more than 6 pounds of broccoli daily to possibly reach the dose of sulforaphane effective in mice. And yes, consumers cannot critically evaluate these statements, and the food industry reacts and serves the demand. So as we can see on the right side with this spermidine product. So, and what we also see is that the impact of one single nutrient or one single food on the overall health is completely overrated, but it's hard to address that. Yes, and also we talked about social media influencers because they are selective in their content and their communication techniques to ensure the nutritional messages are popular with social media users. So they spread very selective content. And what we also see is that algorithms in the social networks multiply the frequency of information on a certain topic, so that you're really bombed with always information from a certain origin or with a certain intention. And this has a strong impact on consumers. Another point which is interesting and was already mentioned here is what about superfood books? I put it into Amazon and got more than 1,000 results. Here are only 3 examples: weight loss, superfood juices, and healing superfoods. Again, the healing aspect. My idea is that the consumer perception regarding the scientific integrity of the books, I couldn't find any research on that, but I would guess that consumers highly overrate the trustworthiness of what is written in a book. So that's also a contribution. They read the books, buy the books, and yeah, it's written in the book, so it's true. Maybe that should be further evaluated. So it's a complicated relationship. From a consumer protection perspective, the following can be summarized. Superfoods are justified in the countries of origin as a food and source of nutrients for the population there, but they are not needed here. And we see a widespread misuse of health and nutrition claims, and superfoods and supplements are most frequently objected foods by the monitoring authorities, and therefore a comprehensive food monitoring is urgently required, because that's what we already heard here. They have the potential to harm consumers economically and health-wise. Yes, and with that, I would like to close, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Julia Sausmikat, for this interesting talk.